What's happening, YouTube? It's your boy Vora on me, and as I promised y'all, in today's special video, we're going to be going over some extraordinary characters during Black History Month. So without further ado, my G's, let's get right on with the video. So the first character we're going to be talking about on the list is going to be the Black Panther, aka the first superhero African descent in American comic books, and not just American comic books, but I believe comic books as a whole. So the Black Panther first appeared in Fantastic Four number 52 in 1966. It was created by the GOAT duo Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, man. What a fire duo right there. But anyways, the Black Panther, man, he's always been one of the coolest characters to me from Marvel Comics, and a guy that was underrated for a while into the MCU. So the Black Panther, let me tell you guys, so my first my first three exposures to the character were in many different ways, but the very first one out of the three was from the Fantastic Four cartoon that aired back I think in the 2000s, but it actually came out in the 90s, and there was one episode that featured Black Panther. I love that episode for so many reasons, because of the fact that the episode is based off his very first comic book appearance in Marvel, where he faced off against the Fantastic Four. He then teamed up with them, and they helped him defeat his villain in that arc. I forgot who it is, but it's been a long time since I've read the comic book and watched the episode, but I remember all those details about the episode. And then the suit that he wears in the episode is based off his very first appearance. The only difference that in the animated show, they added a little blue effect on his costume, which I always like when they do, because they even do that in the comics, especially back then in the 70s and the 80s when they were putting the color on his costume, when they were drawing him in the comic books. It looked so good with his costume, and so that was my very first way of learning about the Black Panther character. And then after that, of course, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, man. We all remember that fire cartoon, bro. Possibly the best version of the Avengers that isn't from the MCU, man. I loved everybody in that show, and Black Panther's one of the all-time standouts from that show, man. They did him so well. They did M'Baku so well. They did Claw so well. They showcased Wakanda greatly, and they showcased Black Panther greatly too, man. He was fire in that show. And then besides those two, let's talk about Marvel Ultimate Alliance, one of the GOAT Marvel video games, man. I know you guys remember playing that game from the 2000s, man. It was on the Xbox 360, I think, and it was on PlayStation 2. That game was fire. That game is peak 2000s Marvel. Like literally anybody that was big back then in the 2000s from Marvel, they were in that game, and Black Panther was one of them too. The only thing is that he was an unlockable character in that game, and I believe you had to get a whole bunch of different trophies, but once you got those trophies, he was unlocked. And man, he was so great in that game, and he was voiced by Phil Lamar, who's known for voicing Jon Stewart and Static from DC. He was a really good character in that game. Besides those three, we gotta talk about how this man became an even bigger name thanks to the late great Chadwick Boseman, who played him in the MCU. Let's first talk about the Civil War, man. The Civil War movie was legendary for so many reasons, because of the storyline that was happening at the time in the MCU, Spider-Man's debut, and then Black Panther's debut in the same movie as well. I'll never forget how good the suit looks in that movie, man. Still to this day, in my opinion, the best looking Black Panther live action suit, man. I'll never forget why they changed it, but it's okay, because the next ones that came after that one were still good too. And then let's talk about a 2018 movie that came out 53 years after his first appearance in 1966. And man, that movie was so special. I'll never forget the day, man. Going there with my best friend, he knows who he is that I'm talking about. Seeing that movie, seeing so many people with their African garbs, man, watching that movie in celebration. I even saw some white folks. They're the goats too for pulling up to the movie with African garbs too, man. I'll never forget that day. Everybody was having a blast watching the movie. It was great seeing all these characters that are usually only featured in the comic books and then sometimes in animated shows. Now they're being brought to life on the silver screen. It was a special moment, and that will always be one of the peak times for the MCU, man. Black Panther, he's one of my favorite characters in Marvel, and I'm glad that so much people now know of him now because of just how great Marvel's been pushing him, and hopefully they continue doing so in the comics, the animated stuff. And then I don't know what they're gonna do with him in the MCU, because his sister is now the Black Panther, but who knows, man. An alternate version of him might come and be a major character going forward, but Black Panther, one of the GOATs. So after Black Panther, let's talk about Storm, the queen, one of the queens of Marvel. And so Storm, she first appeared in Giant Size X-Men in 1975, was created by Lin Wayne and David Cockrum. Now Storm, man, Like, so nowadays, when it comes to the, like, who's like the most well-known female superhero now, people are probably gonna think about Captain Marvel or Black Widow or Scarlet Witch because of the MCU. But before them, bro, I feel like Storm was like easily like top contender, because in the 2000s, the X-Men were everywhere, y'all. The X-Men and the Fantastic Four, like, they were the top dogs when it came to superhero teams back in the day for Marvel. And Storm was one of the ones that was leading that charge for the X-Men, right? And so Storm, she's always been one of the coolest X-Men team members to me, because she has such a amazing power set, man. She's one of the most powerful mutants. She's one of their best teammates, and she's one of the best leaders that they have in the X-Men, man. There was at one point in time where she was so popular that she actually beat Wonder Woman in a crossover event of Marvel and DC from the 90s. Can you imagine that? We all know that Diana is the female superhero. She's the very first one. She's so iconic. There's a reason why she's a member of the Trinity, right? She's had countless movies, animated stuff, and Storm was at one point more popular than her. So you can just see that Storm was like legit possibly like the female superhero at Marvel for a while, until of course the whole issue with Fox having the X-Men rights, so Marvel couldn't really push the X-Men during the time where they were pushing stuff in the MCU. But now that that all's been resolved, we can definitely see Storm along with the X-Men being pushed. So you can just like imagine that if the modern audience gets a taste of the X-Men and Storm, you know they're gonna skyrocket to another level again. But Storm, if she's not like number one for you guys for like your favorite female superhero from Marvel, she has to be at least like top 3 or top 5, because she has so much rich history. She's one of their best leaders, and then even now she's leading a version of the X-Men team right now. So Storm, she's the queen to me, man, from Marvel. But anyways, besides Storm, let's talk about John Stewart. So John Stewart, he is the Green Lantern to me, man. I grew up with him thanks to Justice League and Justice Unlimited cartoon, and he was created by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams, the two late great comic book legends that did so much for DC and Marvel. And it was in 1971, so he was DC's first black superhero, and he's actually the third in line, I think. He's after Black Panther in 1966 and Sam Wilson in 1969. So this guy, he's done some good stuff, man. And John Stewart, man, before the Justice League cartoon, he was kind of obscure. I think he wasn't even a Green Lantern anymore. The only Green Lantern was Kyle Rayner, due to the whole storyline that was going on with Hal Jordan at the time in the 90s. But because of how successful the Justice League cartoon was, they brought him back as a Green Lantern. I love that so much. Since then, he's been pushed in many things. He was in the Justice League comic book by Dwayne McDuffie and Ed Beans at the time. And then after that, was featured heavily in Green Lantern books from the 2000s to the 2010s, until finally they were like, let's bring him back into the Justice League as a part of Scott Snyder's and George Jimenez's Justice League book. So since then, he's been pushing a whole bunch of stuff, and I like that they're pushing him, because like everybody has their own Green Lantern, right? I'm a fan of all of them, but John Stewart is mine. And I'm happy to see that he's still being featured heavily by DC. Like, there's even plans for him to be in the movies soon. Maybe in a buddy cop movie with Hal Jordan. That would make bang for DC, man. A buddy cop movie with Hal Jordan and John Stewart dealing with people like Larfleeze or Atrocitus or Sinestro. That'd be fire, man. Fire. But John Stewart, one of the GOATs for me, man, for sure, from DC. And now, besides John Stewart, let's talk about Static from DC, Milestone Comics. So Static first appeared in Static #1 in 1993 and was created by the late great Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cohen, and the other legends behind Milestone Comics. Now Static, we all know who this man is because of Static Shock, man. That show was so good, bro. We got all 3 intros, especially the third one, fire, man. But what I love about the Static Shock show was how each episode dealt with a different issue, whether it was trying to fit in with somebody or racial tensions that happened. Like, for example, Richie's dad in one episode, like Dwayne McDuffie, he never shied away from dealing with like a major issue that always happens in the real world, and that's why he's always like recognized by me and like a whole lot of people as being like one of the greatest like writers to ever do it. One of the greatest creators to ever do it, because besides doing Static and Milestone Comics, he's known for doing a whole bunch of stuff, such as Ben 10, Justice League Unlimited. He's written so many great stuff, and so the fact that he was able to do all of this with Static, Icon, Hardware, Rocket, and not just them, just from DC as well, from like the 2000s, man. He's done so much for us, man. Static in many ways was inspired by Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and so it's cool knowing that fact too. Like, how he was inspired by one of the absolute GOATs, like a guy that pioneered teenage heroes in comic books, because there was nobody before Peter Parker, right? Like you had Wally West, Dick Grayson, but they were sidekicks. Peter Parker was the teenage hero that was the main hero, and so Static being inspired from a character like that, too fire, man. And now that DC and Milestone Comics have had an agreement now to be able to use Static, DC, y'all gotta go ham with him again, bro, because the success that Marvel has with Miles Morales, bro, that could happen to Static. Static is a gold mine waiting to happen. Like, imagine him having an animated movie or a movie. It'd be too fire, bro, too fire. But the next character after Static we're gonna be talking about is Vixen. Now, Vixen first appeared in Action Comics number 521 and was created by George Conway and Bob Oxner. Now, Vixen, bro, just like John Stewart, first time I ever learned of her character was from Justice League Unlimited, and oh my god, bro. Like, you can say what you want about her powers, but she was like the absolute queen in that show, bro. I loved her design, and I love how the show was able to bring her back into the spotlight in the comic books, because before that show, she wasn't really featured like that in the comic books. Like, she was a pretty obscure character. Like, when you go back and look at her history, she was a member of Justice League Detroit, right? Then after that team disbanded, she was not really like showcased like by DC like that until maybe the 2000s during like a brief like storyline where she was brought into the Birds of Prey storyline by Gail Simone. Other than that, she wasn't really featured heavily like that until Justice League Unlimited, where she was featured thanks to Dwayne McDuffie and a whole bunch of other writers at that time. From her success in Justice League Unlimited, they were like, okay, let's put her in the current Justice League book that was running at the time, which was by Brad Mesler, Dwayne McDuffie, and Ed Beans. And since then, they've been pushing her in a whole bunch of stuff. She's had her own TV show. She appears in games like Injustice 2, and she's now appearing in animated movies again alongside the Justice League. She was a member of the Justice League in the Tomorrowverse, which is the recent animated movie universe by DC. So I'm happy that she's now being featured by DC again, because the same success that Marvel has had with Storm, DC can have that same success with Vixen. You get what I mean? So DC, man, like, I feel like it'd be perfect for her to be one of the Justice League members for James Gunn's new universe. You know what I mean? So for sure, Vixen, she's one of the more underrated characters by DC that I'm glad that they're starting to like really put like an eye on now for who they want to start pushing in their adaptation. So after Vixen, let's talk about Blade. Now, Blade first appeared in The Tomb of Dracula number 10 in 1973. It was created by Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan. Now, Blade, we all know the trilogy, man, by Wesley Snipes, man. Wesley Snipes. He played the hell out of that Blade role, man. Like, at least the first two movies to me were good. The third one with Triple H, you can say what you want, but Blade, he's one of those characters that I love that is still being pushed. And before Black Panther, we had Blade. We had Blade before Black Panther, so that's just something cool to know about. And Blade, I've seen him in so many stuff, but like the first like memory I have of him was possibly from the Spider-Man animated series where he teamed up with Peter to face up against Morbius, and then after that was the Blade movies, of course, and then Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Just like what I was talking about with Black Panther, he was playable in that game. And he's like one of the funnest characters to play in that game, bro. His moveset is fire. His costumes in that game are fire. Blade is like one of those characters that I'm happy is still like so popular today. It's cool. The fact that he even has a movie that's in the works right now, and he has a video game that's gonna be a part of the Xbox exclusive. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I've always been like a PlayStation guy for like the last like, I like to say like last like 10 years, but after hearing this whole thing with Blade being an exclusive, you can bet I'm gonna get the Xbox just to play Blade. Because Blade, he's too fire of a character, man. He was even part of the Avengers for a while during the Jason Aaron run. That just shows you how cool he is as a character. But let's see, after Blade, we can talk about Cyborg. So Cyborg first appeared in DC Comics Presents number 26 in 1980. It was created by the late great George Perez, the artist, and Mark Wolfman, the writer. And Cyborg, I mean, he's one of the most iconic characters from DC, man. Like, whether as his time in the Teen Titans or the Justice League, he's one of their most like popular characters, man. And he really became even bigger because of the Zack Snyder Justice League movie. And now you can say what you want about that movie, man. They're like the cult and all that stuff, but Cyborg, he was the heart and soul of that movie, man. Ray Fisher played the hell out of him, which is why, you know, it's sad seeing what he does now, but I mean, what can you do? His Cyborg was at least good, and Cyborg, I feel like in the new universe that James Gunn possibly does, he might not be a member of the Justice League, but he will for sure possibly be a member of the Titans. And then I don't know if it's just y'all or me, but I'm always the kind of guy that prefers him on a Titans team that's like perfectly okay with him being a member of the Justice League too, as long as they keep his history of being a member of the team intact. You know what I mean? So Cyborg, he's cold too, man. He's a cold character. He used to be like really underrated character that people used to dislike for being a member of the Justice League, but nowadays I feel like people warm up to him a whole lot more now because of the increased exposure he's gotten thanks to the movies, the video games, and all that stuff, man. He even has his own comic book series right now, which I don't think is gonna last very long because he's usually a character that doesn't sell well as a solo character, but we'll see. Things might change for Cyborg. So after Cyborg, let's talk about Luke Cage, man. Luke Cage, bro. Oh my god, Luke Cage, man. So he was one of my mains in Marvel Ultimate Alliance too, man. He had different costumes in that game, right? He had his modern suit, his classic yellow and blue suit. He had different kinds of suits, man. But Luke Cage, he first appeared in the 70s, so like early 1972, right? And Luke Cage, man, I really liked him during the New Avengers run by Brian Michael Bendis and David Finch. I always love when he appears as a member of the Avengers because usually he does street level stuff, right? He's one of Marvel's best street level characters. He usually works alongside Iron Fist, who's another GOATED character, but whenever he appears as a member of the Avengers, you know you're about to see some good stuff with Luke Cage. And so Luke Cage, he's done some great stuff too. He's had his own show. The show is really cool in my opinion. I like the show a lot. Of course, it ended a while back, but who knows, man? He might show up again very soon. But Luke Cage, underrated to me as well. Really great character. Really great character. So after him, let's talk about Black Lightning. So Black Lightning, he first appeared in Black Lightning #1 by Tony Isabella and Trevor Von Eeden. Now, I was talking about John Stewart being the very first black superhero in DC Comics, but Black Lightning was the very first one to have his own series. And Black Lightning, he was underrated for a while too, right? Luckily, the TV show has brought more eyes onto him, and since then, he's been featured in many stuff, right? Now, a funny myth that a whole lot of people like to say is that he's the father of Static, and Static his son, but nah, they share no relation at all. I know they both have similar powers, similar color schemes, but they're two whole different characters, man. In my opinion, I like Static more, but Black Lightning, he's really cool too. And I liked his time on the Justice League team as well during the 2000s because he was part of that team alongside Vixen, Wally West, and a whole bunch of other characters too. And he's also a founding member of the Outsiders, which was also a team that Batman led alongside I forgot some of the characters in that team. Katana and the blonde girl. I forgot her name. It's been a while, but he's a part of that team too. And Black Lightning, definitely working the James Gunn Future Universe too as a member of the Justice League in that team too. Because I always feel like why use Cyborg when you can use Black Lightning? You know what I mean? Like, he has a better relationship with some of the League members too. He's one of those guys that wasn't afraid to like tell Superman and Batman like what the deal was. You know what I mean? Having someone like that on the team is good for the League. Black Lightning, cold character. After Black Lightning, let's talk about Miles Morales. Now, Miles Morales has only been around for like 13 years, and he was created by Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Bichelli, and first appeared in Ultimate Fallout #4, I believe, in 2011. It's crazy how he's become such an iconic character despite not being around for that long. He's only been around for 13 years, and yet he's had his own video game, countless movies, and so many things, man. Now, a whole bunch of people see him as Spider-Man. Like, I know Peter Parker is the guy, right? But many people see Miles Morales as Spider-Man, which is so cool, man. And I can't wait for that third movie with him, man, because we're gonna see him going up against Jimmy Uso, Miles Morales. That's gonna be so cool, man. I know that movie's gonna be peak, man. And I know very soon we possibly get him in the MCU. But maybe not like in the next 5 years, but who knows, man. We got Miss Marvel and some of the other characters from his age in the MCU, so he can possibly now come in as well. But Miles Morales, for a kid that has only been around for 13 years, he's dominated Marvel and the pop culture well, man. To the point where there's nobody on the planet that doesn't know who he is. He's great how impactful he's been, and the man, biracial king, man. GOAT character. So after him, let's talk about Spawn. Now, Spawn, he's the one character on this list that's from Image Comics. Now, Spawn was created by Todd McFarlane and first appeared in Spawn #1 in 1992. Spawn, man, He's such a badass character, man. I loved him in the animated series where he was voiced by Keith David. Keith David is one of the GOAT voice actors. He's played Arbiter, he's played Black Panther, he's played a handful of characters, but him as Spawn is so good. So good that they had to bring him back for Mortal Kombat 11, and I remember playing as him in that game, bro. He has to be one of the best characters in that game when it comes to dealing damage to somebody, bro. Like, he has a whole 90% combo damage where you can take your whole bar away. Too good, man. And then besides that, we can talk about the movie too. Like, you can say what you want about the movie, but it was so cool seeing a character who's only been around for like, what, 7-8 years. He already has his own movie at that time. I didn't watch it at that time because I wasn't even born yet. I was born in 2001, but watching that movie as a DVD, seeing him in that movie, man, played by Michael Jai White and facing up against the Violator, it was the coolest thing to me. Of course, now when you look at it now, it's kind of a cheesy movie, but that's the 90s for you, man. There was a whole lot of cheesy stuff, but the movie was still great. But Spawn, really good character. I like how he's been able to cross over with Batman, Spider-Man, and all these different characters, man. That just shows you how popular of a character he is, man. And he was created by one of the best Spider-Man artists too, who also helped create Venom as well. So really nice, man, really nice. Spawn was great. But now let's talk about some honorable mentions. So Misty Knight, fire character. Steel was amazing. He's one of the 3 Supermen that first showed up in the 90s. I believe it was 1993 that he showed up in, alongside the Eradicator and Cyborg Superman when Superman and Superboy. Let me not forget Superboy when Clark Kent died. And Steel, John Henry Irons. He's always been an underrated character, and I like how his legacy continues on to this day with his daughter, Natasha Irons, who's also a really cool character as well, who served as a member of I forgot the team, but it had Enchantress and all these other characters on the team as well. She was really great on that book. John Henry Irons, I can definitely see him possibly being a supporting character for Superman Legacy by James Gunn if they actually put him into the universe. But John Henry Irons, GOAT character. Nubia is a character that's been around since 1973, the twin sister of Wonder Woman, and now they're finally like using her properly, which is like crazy, right? She's been around for like, I want to say like almost 60 years, and now DC's finally realizing that they can make money with her. And who knows, in the next trilogy of Wonder Woman, they could possibly have her as one of the main characters. So Nubia, underrated character. Karen Beecher, aka Bumblebee, who first appeared in 1976 and then later became Bumblebee in 1977. She's an underrated character too. You guys probably remember her for having the beef with Cyborg in the Teen Titans cartoon. She was fire in that show, and I think if the rumors are true about them having a Teen Titans cartoon, let her be one of the main characters for that movie, bro, because people need to know who she is, bro. Like, we all talk about Starfire and Raven, but she's the queen of the Teen Titans too, bro. She's like one like their longest members of the team. She's been on countless versions of the team, but she's never really featured off like that. But now they can definitely have her be like placed back into the like mainstream eyes by having her be one of the main members of the new version of the Titans going forward. Monica Rambeau, who was one of the main members of the Avengers in the 80s and 90s, and first appeared in the Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16, I believe, in 1982. And it's crazy how it took them so long to adapt her in the MCU, because she's one of like the more well-known Avengers from the 80s, 90s, right? She even led the team for a while during that time period, and now in the MCU, like in modern times, where she's finally being showcased to the audience. That's always like made me wonder, like, dang, man. And she was like the next major Captain Marvel after Marvel too, which is funny to me. But it's good that Marvel has put her like some eyes on her too, though. In the movie that she was in, it didn't really do that good, but hey, man, who knows? The next movies, it will go better, you know what I mean? And so the only other kid I can really think of, who else can I bring up? Oh yeah, Blue Marvel. Blue Marvel, man, all you need to know about him is that he's one of the many versions of Superman, and he's a cold character, really strong character. He's a part of a team known as the Ultimates, which also has other characters such as Carol Danvers, War Machine, America Chavez, and did I say Monica Rambeau already? I think I did. Yeah, he works for them frequently, and the guy is really intelligent too. But yeah, guys, I wanted this video to be a little bit different for you guys, where we just go over some of our favorite characters during this month. And I already told y'all, Static is my favorite out of everybody that listened to this video, but I also love all these other characters too. And so hope you guys enjoyed this sit down video. let me know who your favorite characters are down in the comments below so we can have a nice discussion about it. And then the next video after this one will be the video where I'll be talking about Forearms, how he was the OG Throwdown champion, because we gotta talk about him and Kevin. For y'all Ben 10 fans, y'all already know them. Those two, they used to trade blows back in the day. That's gonna be a good commentary video for you guys. But as always, if y'all enjoyed the video, consider like button, subscribe to the channel. As always, man, thank you guys for the amount of support you've been giving on the channel, man. I really appreciate it. And as always, I hope you're having a nice week, and I'll catch y'all for the next video. Voro Army out.